Okay, hi everyone. My name is Neeraj. I'm the founder CEO of Third Eye. Welcome to yet another episode of Third Eye Business Podcast. We are excited to bring you leaders and stories from brands, traditional or new ages ones, to this episode to talk about their expertise, especially in performance marketing, growth marketing. Today, I'm really excited to invite Pradeep, who is a senior manager at Amazon. He spent a lot of time between India and US. He's a seasoned marketer, over a decade of experience focused in digital ecosystem when I think the whole mobile and digital ecosystem is evolving. Have an experience across various verticals, different markets. He can bring in the perspective of India, US, share some of the learnings that he has through his experience. So, really excited to have you here today, Pradeep. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give us a very brief introduction.
Hey, thanks, Neeraj. Good to be catching up with you after a while. And yeah, always exciting to chat with you. Super excited. Just to give a brief info, like introduction, like you said, I've been in the digital marketing space for over 12 years now. So I've worked with some of the leading brands in India, like starting with InMobi, where I was working as a ad operation strategist, primarily catering to the US market then, and scaling up some of the well-known brands like Twitter, Pandora Music, Uber. So from InMobi, I moved to Flipkart, focusing on performance marketing across search, paid social, especially remarketing, etc. Then I thought like, okay, from retail, I wanted to explore other industries. So then I pivoted to Amazon. I joined the Prime Video India team and started taking care of customer acquisition, especially on the mobile app front. So yeah, in the last 2 years, I moved to US within Amazon. So I'm part of a very exciting startup ecosystem within Amazon, which is catering to specific needs of D2C brands in US.
Lovely, lovely. Really excited. Great. For the audience, I think I want to just take 30 seconds to tell you what we are going to cover and what you expect in next 30 to 40 minutes. During this session, we are going to dive deeper into some of the fundamental market dynamics and consumer behavior when it comes to D2C and e-commerce ecosystem between India and US market. These are the two markets we're trying to cover from a consumer behavior perspective, market maturity perspective. We should know, brand should know. We also dive deeper into some of the growth strategies on the performance marketing that Pradeep has seen working in US as well as in India. So we'd like to get more of his experience out so you can learn from that data driven decision. uh, and then we'll talk about that some of the future trends and best practices that he wanted to share. That's how we are structured, and we try and cover as much as possible during this session, so stay tuned. uh, so Pradeep, the first question, I think, largely when you look at market dynamics, having worked with both Indian and US brands, what are the fundamental difference do you see in these two markets when you kind of operate from the lens of consumer behavior, market maturity, purchase decision factor?
Yeah, see, these two markets are very different uh, at the given point in time right now, especially because if you look at India as a whole, uh, I think roughly around 35 to 36% of the Indian population is urbanized,
Yeah,
whereas in US this number is around 83%,
yeah.
right? So, and India, as we are aware, like it is so diverse, like. 300 kilometers in either direction, you end up in a different state. And so that also adds to complexity. So, taking a broader view on how the consumers are reacting or like what the consumer behavior patterns are, like I
Mhm.
think India is more still in that price sensitive bucket. If you ignore the affluent 10% like urbanized consumers who are willing to pay a premium for convenience,
Hmm.
rest 90% are still very price sensitive,
Hmm.
and their decision evolves around buying based on like family's influence and certain popular brands. Though
Hmm.
there is this Gen Z segment which is like very aspirational in buying brands that resonate, very well with them, and like as a symbol of their social status.
Hmm.
This is more on the urban side, whereas like the larger population is still very price sensitive,
Hmm.
and they are like risk averse as well.
Yeah.
On the contrary side, US is a very well established market with, like I said, 83% of the population is lives in the urban cities and tend more towards brand loyalty. They have this established play of like these are the brands that I buy. Like if you look at core American values, they kind of like lean more towards brands like Nike, which are homegrown, uh, and like they tend to continue buying more products from those brands.
Yeah.
And as long as the decision making goes, they are very individualistic. So they don't necessarily believe that, okay, whatever my forefathers or my parents brought, like I have to stick to those brands. These guys are like willing to experiment. Yeah, I think omni-channel is something that is also becoming a play. So like customers want that convenience on like buying it anywhere and then if they don't like it, returning it anywhere. So
Yeah.
that is something which is being valued. So if just to summarize, I think like Indian market is very price sensitive. They would prioritize price versus convenience,
Yeah.
whereas US as a whole is more convenience and they're willing to pay a premium if the convenience is provided.
We've been hearing through various news and reports is that only 1% of the market, very little fraction of the Indian market is where there's an appetite to pay, and they are loyal to the brand that are really uh, creating the demand in the ecosystem.
Yeah, see, the good thing for Indian brands is this number is growing, right?
Okay.
So uh, the pace is very exciting. And
Hmm.
secondly, uh, if you look at even like 10% of the uh, market which is affluent and like can buy high value products, that is like around 200 million people, right? So big considering the size of India. Whereas if when I said like 83% of the US population is urban, though it is the case, roughly it would come around like 300 million in total.
Yeah.
So 10% of India is able to like almost match 70% of the US overall buying power, right? But
Got it.
the US buying power is much higher than India, though in terms of the size of the market, we might be able to match it. Like if we look at population.
Got it. So let's look at India as a market. Uh, what are the three things that you advise for a young brand who are trying to capture the demand and establishing an e-commerce business to focus on, to run a sustainable, at the same time growing business, to participate in this economy?
The focus would be on one, like building a brand that is very authentic, localized, and caters to the emotions of the segment that one is targeting. And now there is a huge trend on like sustainability, focusing more on like how are we sourcing the product, how are because Gen Z is very vocal, and there is a trend that even millennials, though they are not as vocal as Gen Z is, but they are leaning towards products that are sustainable.
Yeah.
So if I like stick to only marketing standpoint, I think it becomes very important to lean towards how you evolve your performance marketing strategy and then look at some of the brand building activities through referral programs. If I could give an example, I think Paytm did really well in their early days when they like started some of the referral programs where if you refer your friends and families, you get X percentage as cashback or something like that, right? So those were like really effective strategies to lean towards.
Hmm. Lovely. Last question on this, before we kind of move into the next segment around growth marketing and performance marketing. I
Mhm.
work and see there are many brands who also aspire to enter in US market. And they have a very high quality product. Some of those factors that you have just mentioned around where they can build a solid niche in US. What do you advise to those brands when they're looking at US as a market?
Got it. So I think one of the most important thing is like you have to tailor your product marketing and communication to fit the American consumer preference, right? If I
Hmm.
take US as the market that one is targeting.
Hmm.
So this includes like adjusting product offerings to the local tastes as well as like translating the brand messaging to align with the cultural norms. So
Got it.
culturally, US and India are like very different,
Yeah.
right? So and I think one of the biggest thing that one can look for is like they can leverage the data and insights that are there on like how US markets are evolving,
Yeah.
and like they have to be very nimble. One ththing they should ensure is like they should not take an approach of like one size fit all kind of a strategy wherein if it has worked in India, it would work in US. That too could be fatal. And also like in order to scale globally, I think like uh, partnering with some of the local experts would also help because they could provide like collaboration on local distributions, like uh, and also lean into marketing strategies that are very much proven in the current trends. For example, in US, I think influencer marketing is one of the biggest channels within the digital marketing space. If you see, like most of the celebrity-led marketing is kind of vanishing, if I can use that word.
Hmm.
And like there is this influencer-led marketing. So
Great. So now I'm entering into the next segment, which is essentially talking about growth strategy and performance marketing. I think the one fundamental challenge we face when working with smaller to growing brand is to look at brand marketing, look at which is more of a long term play where you probably don't see an immediate return, but it actually pays off in a long run versus uh, looking at performance marketing. How do you see a growing brand could balance between these two, uh, and why it is.
got it. See, there is no one size fits all like magic number. Like I could come back saying, hey, invest 70% in performance marketing, 30% in brand. Like it doesn't work that way. Uh, because each channel work very differently for different brands within digital marketing itself. Like Google could operate at a certain efficiency for categories like fashion, whereas they could operate at a different scale and efficiency for like some of the categories like health and personal care, etc. So I think generally what the growth strategy that I would adopt is like understand what is the overall business requirement and like what should be the minimum KPIs, like what should be the customer acquisition cost, what should be the return on ad spend or ROAS that we are expecting depending on the lifetime value of the shoppers that we see,
Mhm.
and then build the marketing strategy beginning there. So performance marketing in itself can drive units or sales to an extent, but it would taper down if there is no support from a brand building uh,
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah.
So like I said, there like in this new age, there is a lot of overlap also happening between brand building and performance. So like being nimble on the entire process of like how performance marketing is working and when and where to plug in the branding element to resonate really strong with the audience becomes key. Yeah, like adopting a diverse channel mix becomes really important because some of these like high intent channels would work really well in driving conversions, whereas like some of the social channels could help in building brand recall, etc. So mixing both of them and like uh, coming up with the strategy would be ideal.
Got it. Got it. So when a brand is planning for their growth phase,
Mhm.
what is your advice on a framework for what is the right budget that they should be allocating to marketing? How should they choose, or should they choose to build an in-house team versus an agency versus going which channel to really focus when they start thinking about should they even go with Google Meta or some of these big platform, or are there any innovative ways that you want to suggest to operate on?
I think first thing that is very essential is to uh, like benchmark on what should be the right acquisition metrics for us. One a good place to start is like you would always have a competition that is already in the market, who have done like uh, who have evolved over a period of time. So look at how their acquisition metrics are trending. Like there are enough market research reports to understand what categories are being like marketed heavily on digital versus traditional. Within digital, looking at each channels like Google, Meta, TikTok, etc. So that would be my first step to understand the industry benchmarks for the product or business that I am uh, trying to promote, and then look at what should be the balanced mix. What is the appetite for this particular product amongst the general audience? Is it a market or product that is already being sold heavily, or is it like are we creating a market for this product newly?
Hmm.
So those are the things that I would consider. And because it's a startup, it's at the growth stage. I would focus more towards performance marketing, say around like at least 60 to 70% of the budget, because that gives the instant result, right? So when I say performance marketing, it could be search, look at reports on like of your existing customers on like how did they get into the channel? Was it through email marketing or was it if through search marketing? If it is search, look at what are the keywords that draw these customers and try to build your SEO inline to cater to those keywords so that the brand building element also kicks in as well, and like you don't have to essentially like spend money to acquire customers. So like it's a multi-channel play, and it has to be across like established channels like Google, Meta, and also some of these new trends like it could be TikTok Shop. By the way, I understand TikTok is banned in India, but TikTok Shops is a huge trend in US where the social commerce is a big phenomenon right now. So
Got it.
yeah, keep exploring those platforms.
Got it.
And talking about like whether to go with agency or having an in-house team, both has its own merits and demerits. So like I would say like evaluating the complexity of the marketing needs and what is the internal expertise that we have. In-house teams will always gives us greater control, faster communication, and like deeper alignments, right?
Hmm.
Whereas with agencies, you will have an excellent expertise that you can tap into because they would have worked with hundreds of brands.
Yeah. Perfect. Now, turning into the next segment, how can brands leverage uh, data for their growth and why it is really important? Especially, I think I've seen a phenomena where this growing brand don't have a structured way of data collection, looking at the meaningful metrics that really matters, that can turn those insights into action. So what do you suggest, keeping these growing brand in mind, to really invest into technology and many different tools? What are the smarter way that they can start looking at the data more meaningfully, collecting and capturing the right insight and making the right decisions to grow their business?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So this is the era where data is gold, and for any brand like that is making their presence and want to leverage data, I think tracking as much as their first party data becomes very vital. So if a brand has a DTC website, they should be able to track data across all the funnel metrics. When I say funnel, it's like who are the visitors who are like landing on the website, what are their behaviors, which are the products that they are exploring, and like are they taking the next decision to consider those products to purchase, are they doing add to cart, and then like are they finally going and making the purchase. And like uh it's a like it's the need, it's a simple basic need that we should have some kind of like tag manager involved across all these platforms. Though it's difficult to track what's happening in channel A versus channel B, and like try to stitch that, which is a challenge across all the platforms. I think to begin with, structuring the data collection so that like you own your brand's data is very important. If you
Mhm.
look at the marketplaces right now, they sit on ton of data, right? So that's the reason they are able to optimize each and every pixel on their page and start showing products that are very relevant to shopper and like fine tune their products to meet their needs, product
Yeah.
as well as pricing. The brand individually should be able to build that path over the period of like starting the company and then like as they establish growing. So it
Hmm.
becomes very key.
Understand. So I think if you were to very precisely tell a brand what are the three things that they should track and optimize for uh, in the whole funnel, what that would be.
Yeah. See, I think the important metrics from a marketing standpoint should be like how much am I spending to drive traffic to my website? So is it like uh, is 90% of my traffic coming through paid channels or like is a major chunk coming organically? So that gives
Yeah.
an indication on like whether there is a brand value already being established for this product, or is it like, is it still a performance play where we have to pay? So cost per visits or cost like the traffic metric becomes a important uh,
Hmm.
first metric to track, and then look at what are the engagement rates on the website. So if you're driving traffic to your own website where the shopper, where you expect the shoppers to purchase,
Hmm.
you look at like how are the engagement rates are, like are the shoppers really engaging with the product and with the web page that you have built. So that gives a lot of insights on, is my page at par with uh, as per the customer's expectation, or do I need to like tweak a lot to make it even more appealing for a
Hmm.
shopper? And then like even going down the funnel, you look at like what is the conversion rate, like is the shoppers who are landing on my page ending up with purchasing the product or at least adding to cart? What is that conversion metric? So that becomes a primary like metric to look for. So these three across the funnel would be vital, and then also look at uh, what is the cost per acquisition that I am like shelling out as a whole. And then like one step further, we should also look at one of the most important metrics is the lifetime value.
Hmm.
Understand what is the lifetime value of each of your shopper, because that will play as an input metric on like what is the uh, money that I'm willing to spend to acquire a new shopper.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. These are some of the critical metrics that a brand should capture at different stages of the funnel and optimize for. Now, probably last few questions around the future trends, where we are towards the end of 2020. What are the emerging trends should a brand paying attention in next year and really adopting to from a technology perspective, from a consumer behavior perspective, the channel effectiveness perspective, especially in India, right? That you see is changing the landscape and kind of can shift and and challenge some of the bigger brand if some of the emerging brand ride on it.
Yeah. So, see, in terms of consumer behavior, I think the emerging trends are, though it's not like at its peak, but I could literally see that there is a shift to conscious consumption, where like consumers are prioritizing sustainability and ethical practices,
Yeah,
the brands that favor them, and they demonstrate that they are like socially responsible to take care of this planet, etc. So
yeah.
that is one thing. And secondly, they're also looking at like hyper personalization, right? So
Mm-hmm.
with digital media being an advantage, you do not have to show one single ad to like
Mm-hmm.
millions of audiences, which might
Yeah,
be relevant only for 50% of them and might not be relevant for the rest.
yeah.
So like shoppers expect brands to provide tailored experiences,
Hmm.
from personalized product recommendation to dynamic pricing. So you can look at, like, there are AI based engines that are being built, which could, like, once it looks at, like, where the shoppers, what is the shopper's IP address, it kind of recommends products that they are most likely to engage with, and then show them products within the price range which they are likely to make a purchase. So these are the things that are becoming very kind of like subtly becoming a trend, and again, like, more on uh, building that sense of belonging. Like, it becomes a, like, when someone purchases a brand, they want to be a part of that community, or like be a part of that group that represents something, largely on the sustainability front, or from a, like, premiumship standpoint in that way. So
Yeah.
these are the trends that I could see, or like read, at least on the papers that I've read, that are emerging. In terms of marketing technology, AI and automation becomes like very critical. Like, how we could, like, there is truckload of data available on internet. How are we using AI to kind of like draw meaningful insights out of it, and then cater to these shoppers? Like, this data helps not only in marketing, but also helps in fine tuning the product and pricing, so that that becomes a, like, it becomes a win-win across all. So marketing, like martech, is also a big space where AI is definitely going to play a huge role. And then there are these trends which, I know you know better, because you, like, you were in Meta, so the AR VR experiences, all those things are also like coming up within the marketing technology front.
Yeah, I think in nutshell, technology is going to play a critical role, and could potentially become a key differentiator for a brand to operationalize some of these marketing, doing more with less. It can enable some of the brands to kind of do more with less, especially when you deploy the AI in a right way, and
Yeah.
automate some of the things that can essentially drive your insights at scale. I definitely agree that's going to be the pattern. That's going to be the next big thing in next year, which what we potentially believe it third eye, where a
Mm.
part of it is where we are also playing an important role to automate the overall insight generation, recommendations for the brand using our platform. So totally agree. A great conversation, Pradeep. I think this has been very insightful conversation for me to learn about the best practices to really grow the brand in India. Sustainability, I think you talked about consumer consumption, some of the best practices to really scale the brand from a marketing perspective. So thank you so much for your time. Uh, really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Any
I know,
parting
like,
word for the audience and us?
yeah, I think it was a, like, very, like, it was a wonderful conversation. It's been a while since we, like, dive deep into these trends, like how the markets are evolving, and it's a very fast pace, right? So whatever we spoke today might mature in, like, 2 to 3 years time, and can change completely. So,
Yeah.
like, uh, following the trend is one thing, whereas, like, being an early adopter of trend and like setting the trend becomes key. So I think that is where companies like Tadai would play a pivotal role in helping these smaller brands, especially smaller and the mid-sized brands, to grow, is what I believe. So yeah, you guys are doing a phenomenal work, and all the very best for the team. And yeah, great chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pradeep.